All right, guys, of course, last night was disappointing. We went up there to win the game, and we certainly didn't do that. We didn't do anything to help ourselves win the game. We actually beat ourselves with turnovers and penalties. We expect to clean up a bunch of that this week. We've been focused and trying to clean those up, and it hasn't gotten done yet, so we've got to continue to harp on it. Each individual has to make a commitment to doing that on an everyday basis. And that's where it's going to start, because you have no chance to win the game if you do those things, which is very evident. So with that, any questions?
Freddie, I know you don't coach penalties, and the discipline issue has been a problem for most of the season. How do you account for that? Why is it not resonating with these guys that it's got to change?
Well, most pre-snap and post-snap penalties is focus and concentration on the task at hand in a timely manner. Myles Garrett has had 6 penalties this year. 5 of them came in the first 2 games. So he did something to correct his mistakes. We need more guys doing that.
Freddie, how much does it bother you that obviously you've been talking about that since training camp, right? Discipline and accountability, and it's still here after week 7.
It's a commitment that they have to each other, and accountability to each other, because it's very evident that that's costing us football games. So when they decide that, it will change. We're going to do things to speed up that process, which we have been doing. Everybody understands the problems. We're going to work to fix those problems.
What more can you do as a coach other than to say, don't do it?
There's a couple things we're going to do this week to see if it works.
You can't let us know what that is.
No.
How did you think the move worked out with starting Justin at left tackle instead of Greg?
I thought he fought. I didn't think he did too bad with his first start away. He gave up a sack. The guy actually slipped and fell and kind of caught his knee. It was kind of a weird deal. But I thought he fought. He was good in the run game. He fought in protection. So I thought he was okay.
A lineup move like that feels like maybe some of the detailed mistakes you're talking about. I think Pharaoh Brown had a couple flinches yesterday. Feels like Antonio Callaway at times has not been precise in certain things. I'm not trying to call guys out, but we see who some of the mistakes are from. Could that be an answer, to take some other guys out of the lineup or reduce playing time to make that point?
Everything's always on the table when you continue to do the same things over and over. So I would leave it at that, probably, right now. Everything gets evaluated whenever the same problem keeps happening to the same people. But again, it's different people at different times. It's not just them. I understand what you said about a couple of those guys. They're going to work to fix their problems. Everybody needs to work to fix their problems and do their job. But ultimately, if we feel like a change is needed, either to increase our chances of being successful on every play, which in return would increase our chances of being successful at the end of the day, then we will do it and won't hesitate in doing that. The thing, you have no chance in some of the penalties that we've had is created long down and distances, all right? Then you have no chance to be successful with that drive. And if you eliminate some of those drives, you don't have so many drives to do anything with. And that's where we're at right now. Offensively, we're doing some good things, but we're killing ourselves with turnovers and penalties. And that's all it is.
Why is Callaway playing ahead of Higgins?
We feel like he's doing a better job right now. Higgins has been back 2 weeks. Contrary to popular belief, Higgins wasn't ready to play 3 weeks ago. Ask Higgins again about 2 weeks ago. He may have a different answer now. So I'm not answering questions about playing time. We're playing who we think is giving us the best chance to win right now.
Freddie, what kind of discipline do the players face during the week when they do commit these penalties over and over again or have mistakes during a game?
I'm not going to get into what happens during our practices. But if you guys were at training camp, you saw what the offensive line and everybody had to do when they jumped offside. So There has to be some kind of consequence, but I'm not going to get into what we're doing during practice, during the course of the week.
Penalties and the illegal hands to the face seem to be the most repetitive and the most damaging.
Right.
Is that a technique thing from guys? You've talked about you can live with a physical error here and there because that happens in the course of live action, but just those penalties really seem to be the ones that are holding you back.
Well, sometimes the hands of the face happens. It seems to be happening a little too often when we can control the situation. Now, some of it is, their hands are in the right place. Their hands get knocked upward. It hits the head. It happens. Things like that happen. But what causes insult to injury a lot of times is those other things that are repetitive, like the false starts that you can control by concentration and focus on what you've got to do. And the first thing you got to do is go off when the ball snapped. The hands of the face are costly penalties because of the yardage that it means. But a lot of times the post-snap penalties are with playing with passion instead of emotion. So it's you just try to clean it up, and that's what we're going to try to do. But it takes commitment from each individual that's committing these penalties to do it. I think moving forward, these guys will be committed to doing that.
How do you put it to the team that you need to beat Denver in the worst way?
We need to win every game in the worst way. You don't look ahead. You stay in the moment. I think our guys will do a good job of staying in the moment, preparing on Wednesday, then coming back and preparing on Thursday, Friday, and then going to play the game. Eliminate the penalties, eliminate the turnovers, and we'll be fine.
There's been a lot made of it nationally and locally. The 4th and 11, where you told the guy to take the penalty. Could you talk about that and why you might not have had that play ready in third, before third down?
Well, sometimes in the course of action with punt teams, sometimes they're used to when you're at your own 25 or whatever we were, just 4th and 11, they're running on the field. So there's a lot of, the buck stops with me. I should have not let that happen. And but once the punt team was out there, there was two choices: use your last time out, or take a penalty. And I decided to take a penalty.
Did you know when you set the offense on the field for that drive that you were not going to punt? In that down 17, 8 minutes left?
Yes.
Should that have been better communicated to everybody on the team?
It should have, yep.
So you and some of the players have said you've had these really good practices.
Which is my fault.
You've had
ahead,
good
sir.
practices the last few weeks. And Baker talked about having to carry that over to the game. So I'm guessing there's not a whole lot of penalties in practice if you're saying it's really crisp. So why do you think it can't go from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to Sunday?
Focus and concentration on doing what you're supposed to do and eliminating all other distractions and only worried about what I've got to do on that play. And the first thing I got to worry about is a snap count. And it can't be off a defense's voice or a defense's movement. It just has to be off my job, knowing what our snap count is. And then it kind of complicates things too, because then you get into a situation where you don't want to use the snap count for your advantage. So now they get a jump on you, and it complicates protection. So it's kind of a snowball effect, and it all starts with the focus and concentration of the snap count, and then we can get better at the other aspects of it. But when you jump off sides, you have no chance. You don't even run the play. So
One of your themes yesterday post-game was turnovers and penalties, but to the point of Chubb's 2 turnovers, here again you've acknowledged Chubb as a very conscientious guy, and obviously he's having a pretty nice year and looking pretty good. How do you kind of present what Nick Chubb is coming off a game when he has 2 really costly fumbles?
are you asking if I talked to Nick Chubb about those fumbles? Or?
What do you say to Nick? What do you say to anybody? You say, well, obviously you like Chubb, you're going to keep playing. I mean, he's a good player, all that. But
there's always things you can do to improve when you have a turnover. So if you're carrying the ball improperly, you're more likely to fumble. If you don't have it in the right arm, you're more likely to fumble. So those are all things that Nick can learn from, and he will. I have no doubt that Nick will learn from those moving forward.
I think the consensus on him would be that he's your most efficient and best offensive player right now. Would you go along with that?
I would. I think Nick brings the same thing to the table every day, whether it's practice, game, it doesn't matter. He's going to be there to work.
The way he responded after those 2 fumbles and really did his part after that.
Right.
Had a little bit of a teaching moment for your team to show, hey, here's a guy who had adversity early, and this is what he did after it to turn it around. And I, maybe need you guys to also kind of follow that.
Well, of course, you use every opportunity like that to point out, but everybody in the locker room knows what Nick Chubb's about, knows how he is, how the type of player he is. He's resilient. You want a football team that's resilient, and we're going to find out how resilient we are. But at the end of the day, it goes back to the same 2 things, turnovers, penalties, defensively getting a stop when you need it. That's what it goes down to, that's what most games in the National Football League comes down to. Let's don't fool anybody.
On that subject, that long screen pass yesterday, and I think it was a screen pass in that Tennessee game that burned you after you made it close. Was there anything similar in those 2 plays, or what broke down in that one yesterday?
Well, I'll let you watch the tape, but it was definitely the screen pass was a big play. They actually had 2 that were pretty big plays that, we have to come up with a stop there. Those guys know that, and we'll work to get those corrected just like we're working at our corrections on offense.
You guys had, I think, a couple 3rd downs defensively. I think there was one early where Greedy played some off coverage and they hit a 1st down in front of him, and then another, I think Whitehead was late to the guy. Are you guys in the right coverage looks right there, given those underneath throws, or would you like to see an adjustment there?
Yeah, we just need to compete for the ball a little more right there, a little tighter coverage. They were in the right coverages, wasn't a blown coverage in those instances. We just like to have a little more, a little tighter coverage per se, and not worry about getting run by so much. Our guys are fast enough, they're long enough, playing with confidence. That was early in the game. I think those guys got back into the flow of the things pretty good.
Just get after it, break on the ball a little quicker,
Just
try
get
to
after
stop the guy short. Okay.
Yep.
Freddie, I know you felt like that. The pop pass was a good call, at that moment. It's what you had drawn up or what have you. Given, though, that you had just had fumbles on consecutive plays, was that a little too risky?
No, I don't think so. It's a 4-yard, 3-yard little shovel. We've run it several times. We just didn't execute what we were supposed to do up front.
Baker had no chance to see that end coming there either.
This is a bang. You'd like to. If you second guess everything, you'd say, yeah, you could hold on to that, but that doesn't happen. I've never seen it happen. We've got to execute up front with that.
A couple more?
And I'm not trying to blame guys, but it's what's on film. Joel had the play where he kicked the ball out of Nick's hands. That's a fluke. He had a hold on a screen that turned a 3rd and 2 into a 2nd and 25. And then it looked like he's the guy who's supposed to make the block on the end there because McCray's pulling. When you have a guy like Joel Bitonio, for instance, who's a really good football player for a long time, but has a couple, we're talking about details, and not making those kind of mistakes, what can you do as a coach? How do you address that going forward when you know he's a good football player, but there were a couple really big plays that hurt you yesterday?
And when you talk about the details of things, that's what usually hurts you in games like that, because you have to be good with your details. Joel will come back from it, and he will have a much better game next week. That's all I'm going to say about that.
How much does it hurt you when these penalties and mistakes keep happening? Because, the lack of discipline really does reflect on you first.
I agree totally. Everything about the program should reflect on me, and I'll accept it, but I also have a hand in fixing it.
Odell, yesterday after the game, talked about how he wished he would have had an opportunity when I guess he was talking about the one-on-one times when he was with Stefan. He wished that you guys would have forced that issue a little bit more, challenged that a little bit more and giving him some more chances. Are you comfortable with the way that all went down, or do you look back and think maybe that would have been a good
Odell had 7 balls thrown to him. He caught 5 of them. I'm not responding to that. We need to win a football game. That's what I'm worried about.
Did Justin McCray play well enough to get to start against Denver?
I don't know yet.
Go back to that 4th and 11. And just to get on the record, I ask you this, and I'm not on the sideline, so I don't know how you communicated it and all that, but is that any kind of thing that might make you take a step back and say, I got too much I got to do on it?
No, that's not happening. I'm calling the plays. I'm the head coach, so that's not happening.
Is there anything else?
You had a couple challenges yesterday that went against you that it looked like, again, watching on TV on the replays, that it was pretty clear they weren't going to get overturned. Is there anything you guys can do logistically to make those decisions on the sideline?
Yeah, I think we have a pretty good setup in the box. Those guys, they give their opinion pretty quickly. The one with Antonio, with the offensive PI, that was a big play in the game right there. So I felt like that would have been a big conversion if we could have gotten it. Now, we need to get better at our technique, but as far as throwing the flag, the rule states a generous yard is the exact wording, I think. Very generous 1 yard on either side of the line of scrimmage. The guy was pressed at 1 yard, and I thought just, it was a good opportunity to take a chance. Sometimes you got to take a chance in those situations and see what they see. Would they have come back and said, well, you actually didn't initiate the contact, or, yeah, he was inside just over a yard, so they may pick it up. I think you just have to go off what the rule says and try to make a calculated risk versus the reward, and that's what I did in that situation.
And when you look at that on replay, do your guys drift too far downfield? Where did you lack the details or the precision in making that work?
We've got to avoid the contact there. You can't make the contact unless he's inside of a yard. So that's kind of the dilemma. If he's inside a yard, you can literally block him. And that's where the generous yard. So we had a couple opportunities, I think, to win the challenge. So I think it's such a big play in the game. It's kind of a calculated risk.
Makes you feel any better, Tony Romo didn't like the offensive PI against Higgins. What do you think on that? What did you see on that play?
Not commenting on that.
Hey, Freddie, it looked like Baker and Jarvis landed hard on their shoulders. How'd they come out of it?
They'll be fine.
Any other injuries?
Demarius is probably the only one right now. He's day to day.
Good. What about right guard? Are you still trying to keep that rotation going, or what was your kind of evaluation?
Did you say good already? Or?
It was a question.
Everything's being evaluated. At some point we got to start building some depth up there and see where we're at.